Electricast.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning, careless fighting off sharks with a stapler, and pirates are pillaging the office copier, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Western demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley,
to talk a movie from 2025 starring ya boy, Daniel Day-Lewis, Anemone. Not to be confused with Anemone. As soon as I found out this wasn't an Under the Sea movie and I realized it was a flower movie, it was like it unlocked the pronunciation for me. Anemone.
Wait, this is throwing me off. The thing under the sea is anemone?
Anemone, yeah.
Are you 100% certain? Because this is the new Calvary.
That was my thing. You never had a problem with that. That was my thing. Yeah, anemone. Wait. Anemone. I'm so confused right now because I just searched anemone on Google and anemone came up.
Yeah, there is no anemone.
What do you mean there's no anemone? Sea creature that closes on finger.
What?
You know how when you poke it? Sea anemone. A sea anemone. Anemone. Oh, shoot. Wait, they're both anemones?
There is no anemone. Although that would have been a good title. You know how the font is so weird for this movie, for the title, for the credits? If this movie had been an enemy and they had, the first E was larger or capitalized, that could have been a good play, I suppose.
So both the sea creature and the flower are anemones?
Yes, because anemone doesn't exist.
I like how you just sat back. The whole time I spiraled out on this.
Okay. Then I'll take control for this episode. I've decided we're going to institute a new system, a new bit for the beginning of episodes, starting with anemone. And I'm calling it PROQUE, P-R-O-Q-U-E. And PROQUE stands for Potentially Racist Opening Question Unless Edited.
I think this is way better than Iris's Racist Corner. Or is it racist? And then is the edited part, like if we choose to edit out the PROQUE, then we can just skip over it entirely?
Right. And we're coming at this from a position of wonder and curiosity, not from hate or whatever. I really have questions when movies like Anemone put me in a position. That question is, today's PROQUE is, does it suck to be Irish? Look, I saw Angela's Ashes. I read Angela's Ashes. We talked about Banshees of Inisherin. We saw Belfast. Did you know that Bram Stoker's mom had to kill a plague zombie and cut off its arm in Sligo? I saw The Crying Game. But I really want to know because the Western is the only true American genre. And Westerns are hard. And, it's hard life out there. And it's hot and dusty. And it's the Wild West, quite literally. And people are shooting each other over grudges and stuff. And that's the American story. And you know what the Irish movie story is?
What?
It's being super sad and living with regret with a windbreaker out on the rocks by the water where it's raining or hailing in such a way that it's trying to kill you. He was like, we're sleeping outside tonight. And I was like, what? You're going to die.
He seemed like he was the consummate outdoorsman, and he was like reading the weather as he stood out there. And it was kind of like a premonition the way he said it. We're sleeping outside tonight. And was it because he knew there was going to be a hailstorm? It does seem like the Irish wear their sorrow like a heavy mantle. Their life is filled with obstacles like the craggy cliffs and the rough weather around them, and that this is a part of their identity, that they're a tough folk and they come from tough environs.
Folk.
And they've had tough lives. And they wear it proudly. It's part of their identity. And they, go in the pub and they sing songs, and I saw Snatch. They celebrate their death by getting drunk and with raucous parties.
Admittedly, this is throughout history. This isn't right now. I don't know. Maybe they're still going to pubs and having sing-alongs. But I will add that in Bruges, Colin Farrell said, I grew up in Dublin. I love Dublin. I won't, spoil the rest of it or whatever, but he did say that. So anyway, I think that Daniel Day-Lewis wanted to get Sean Bean out into the wild or whatever because he wanted to get Sean Bean and film crew out of his house. Do you know that the way this was filmed is like Blair Witch style? The film crew sneaked up and planted remote cameras around his, like, Daniel Day-Lewis's farm. And then they had Sean Bean go up and knock on the door, and he walked in and they stared at each other and they captured it all on film because the cameraman went in there. And then someone slipped Daniel Day-Lewis a script. And he was like, hey, your name is Ray, and we're making a movie. And he was like, all right. And then kind of went with it, all methody.
You're saying that Daniel Day-Lewis was actually cobbling shoes in that little hut?
Yeah, he was chilling out in the middle of nowhere, not making movies, and they barged in on him, and he decided at the last minute not to axe chop them. He's just hobbling and listening to Goth Wave or something out there. And then he was suddenly making a movie. That's what you do, is how you trick you. They triggered Daniel Day-Lewis, like Pavlovian style or whatever. They handed him a script and put a camera in his face, and he can't not act.
Maybe that's what the little seal or dolphin clicker was.
Yep.
When you click it, he goes into acting mode. What was that thing?
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Sean Bean's outside the door, and then he decides not to hack him up. Ray decides not to hack up Jem because he uses the dolphin clicker.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but he associated that sound. He didn't know if Jem was coming with ill intent or whatever, but that was the clicker calms him down. He was like, I may get a fish out of this. And the script was appropriate to get him into character because we have no idea what's going on for a good portion of the thing. And then he kind of drops casually, what's another murderer in the family? And I thought that's a good way to parse out information. And it's a good way to ease Daniel Day-Lewis into this performance because he doesn't know what's going on and we don't know, but he's going to create it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Brian, the son, both the brothers' son, when he says that, we haven't met Ray yet, have we?
We saw him from the back.
Oh, right. So we basically established him.
Yeah, I think we intentionally blended the brothers. Kelly was like, that's the same guy, right? And I was like, no.
Yeah, it was pretty, there was so much that was confusing about this. But we get that intro from Brian, the son, before we actually meet Ray in any material way. And it's such a great way to set up the danger of approaching this man. He's already creepy in this backwoods kind of way. But then when you know that he's got this backstory, I agree. Great way to set up his character. Does he deliver on that character?
Does Daniel Day-Lewis deliver on the Ray Stoker character?
Well, on his murderous past?
I think that's the only reason we're talking about this movie is Daniel Day-Lewis. As much as I really like Sean Bean and really like Samantha Morton, I don't know who that Brian kid was. We're here because the only person that could get Daniel Day-Lewis back on screen did so and directed this movie. And he carries it, for better or worse, wherever this movie is going, he carries it all the way through. I certainly hope that he delivers on that character because otherwise Anemone got a problem.
Well, let's parse it out a little bit, because I think as a debut, Ronan Day-Lewis's Anemone is a pretty solid piece. But I guess the question is, how much of that is Daniel Day-Lewis? And obviously his performance carries the film, but he got a lot of other things really right. It's contained, it's small, it's a simple story. It's story heavy while being plot light. And super emotional. That's a really smart first film for a filmmaker.
Cheap. And who happens to have the best actor of his generation as a dad?
Well, work with what you got, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anemone, not drawing a lot of critical raves. As of this recording, Golden Globe nominations are announced. Golden Globes don't mean anything. I would like to reiterate that. But nothing, no recognition for Daniel Day-Lewis or Ronan Day-Lewis or any of their titles, hats that they wore for this movie. People don't love this movie, but praise for Daniel Day-Lewis's return is almost unanimous. Not that he is bringing the heat like he did with, Gangs of New York, I think, was his return from his last quote-unquote retirement, a term which he says he regrets saying. I'm not sure that Ray is that for the third coming or the fourth coming of Daniel Day-Lewis, but he is good in whatever he does. What was it? Jack Nicholson in The Departed quoted, I don't know if it's an accurate quote, from John Lennon, saying, "I'm an artist. You give me a frickin' tuba, I'll get you something out of it." He can and does work with whatever he has. And it's not to say that the Ray character is not substantive enough to be worthy of Daniel Day-Lewis, but rather that he takes an ordinary guy. The framing for Jem's approach to Ray's cabin and everything, we get these half pictures of him, and we get the axe, and we get his back and stuff, and he's shrouded in myth based on his family and what Jem knows of his brother, and Brian's never met the dad, and Samantha Morton talking about him, but he's not an epic reclusive character. He's not a prophet, or he's not Kurtz out there in the darkness. You know, he's just a normal dude who listens to random music and runs on the beach and makes shoes and tells the most horrific poop stories you've ever heard. I mean, he's, a damaged guy, but he's not a mythic figure. And I think it's Daniel Day-Lewis just burning intently from within to give this character pain and backstory in such a way that it would justify him. There is no justification from running from his family the way he did. But if anybody's going to play Ray as a tortured dude, it's my boy.
He probably speaks a handful of words before his poop story monologue. Which makes it all the more shocking. Is it a true story? He asks Jem outright afterward, "Do you believe that? Did you believe it?"
Yes, I did. I hope so. Otherwise, Ray's got not just trauma, but real mental issues. Like, you can't just be manufacturing that kind of stuff. You can't create that kind of backstory for you. If you're going to do that, your scumbag brain should give you something better than that story.
You think he has less mental issues if he did it than if he lied about it?
Yes, it happened to him, and he achieved some twisted form of redemption. But if his mind was adrift and he created the Father Ripon story, then that's not a dude you want to seek out to convince your kid to go back to his regiment or whatever.
Well, I believe in the abuse that Ray and Jem seemed to agree upon. But the revenge story, do you think it actually happened?
Sure. But then he's maybe not right. Maybe that could be his brain compensating to give him some measure of relief or comfort. Okay, sure.
I just thought it was such a curious character moment and kind of a mind-bending moment that he would even ask his brother if he believes that story is true. It called into question the whole narration, and I was like, is he a unreliable character or narrator in the case of this story? Can we trust kind of anything that he says?
Here's to quitting. Quitting the couch for a quick run. Quitting the snooze button for a morning workout. Quitting giving up after 2 weeks. You see, staying committed to your fitness goals isn't easy. But with Apple Watch, you don't have to do it alone. Because Apple Watch gives you real-time motivation, plus advanced metrics that track all your workouts, so you can stick to your New Year's fitness resolutions. And once and for all, quit quitting with Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
The Subaru Share the Love event is on from November 20th to January 2nd. For 18 years, Subaru and its retailers have supported over 2,700 local charities through the Share the Love event. When you purchase or lease a new vehicle during the 2025 Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru and its retailers will make a minimum $300 donation to charity. Visit Subaru.com/share to learn more.
I was first in line for Anemone in theaters. I was very excited, but then I needed to watch it again because I had questions. Did it really happen? I don't know. Did he really see the giant fish? The apocalyptic Magnolia level hailstorm did it happen to everyone? It happened to Jem. It happened to him. It happened to Brian. And it happened to, what was her name? Nessa? It didn't make crazy news or whatever, and I think it would have, but I don't know what happened. I told Kelly that we were discussing Anemone, and I said, do you even remember it? And she's like, yeah, I remember. It's the one with the crazy brother in the woods and the glowing horse penis. Like, he's the only one that saw the Patronus. And I don't know what that, yes, I watched it again. I still don't know what that was about. I still don't know what the fish was about. I mean, I can obviously project or make connections and say that the fish is damaged and he's casting it off. He's letting the fish flow off and releasing all these old wounds or whatever. He's the dead fish on his back or something.
And the Patronus?
The fact that he only saw that he was the only one to see that when he got up in the middle of the night and was called to it from across the pond when they're sleeping outside or whatever. That seems like a nightmare that you would have. I had this idea this morning that the Patronus was the genesis of this movie, was the seed of this movie. Maybe one or the two of them, Ronan Day-Lewis and his dad Daniel, co-wrote this movie, and then Daniel Day-Lewis starred. But maybe one of them had this dream of this weird glowing horse thing, or horse penis thing, and that is the specter visiting a man who thought he could escape his past and didn't. He says, Brian, to the horse thing that has a weird face. And the digestive tract from the mouth to the stomach, they don't seem connected. And I don't know. So I did give a fair bit of time, devoted it to untangling this narrative, and I really didn't come up with any substantive answers.
Which is kind of unsatisfying, huh?
Well, I think Ray and Jem and Brian and Nessa live unsatisfying lives, which prompted today's proke. Nessa says, what do you know about the Troubles in Northern Ireland? Referred to consistently as Troubles. And then cuts away. And I'm like, I know, kinda. I just know it was terrible. And I hoped, but we had no guarantee that Ray would actually tell that story, which he did, and I paid ultra close attention to the second time around. But it's not anything worse than what happened in Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. It's a bad story, but then he wipes his nose and was like, yeah, it's 15 years. I was ready to term out anyway. Like, he can live, I think, with the decision he made. Maybe he doesn't get his, super officer's pension or whatever, given that he was, I assume, dishonorably discharged as a war criminal. But it's not like he escaped prosecution or whatever. He was just this guy who was, kind of a big deal, a career military man who got kicked out. And unfortunately, that reacts negatively on Brian, but it's kind of Brian's fault for following in his obviously troubled dad's footsteps. And he's like, I didn't tell the kid to enlist or whatever. That's his own dumb fault. And he goes to the place where his dad has notoriety and gets ribbed for it. Take some, grow a pair. Kid, step up and own it. You chose this path for yourself.
He chose the path to go into the military after his dad's So he should own his dad's reputation?
Yeah,
or he has to decide and say, it's not me, that I'm not my dad.
Right. And he can justify it for himself, saying that, like Samantha Morton said, like Nessa said, he doesn't know the man. Don't say those things about him. You don't know him. And that was a particularly painful truth for me as the viewer. I was like, oh, yeah, he's got these images and he basically believes what people have told him. He doesn't know his dad to confirm or eliminate those doubts, which was really hard. And I get it. He's tortured, but I think the whole movie is about regret and Ray dancing away from that regret at every opportunity, going farther and farther into the woods. Brian lashing out at his mom at his enlistment and going AWOL and just being in a place where there's no resolution for that regret. And it manifests all kinds of crazy things like the horse penis and the dead fish and the hailstorm. None of us are safe. And if we're going to come together or find peace or a resolution, we should probably do it before an even bigger hailstorm shows up.
Yeah, life is unpredictable, and these kind of level-setting events, natural events, can remind us that anything's possible, anything can happen at any moment, and get it together.
I know that I'm talking about Daniel Day-Lewis in sort of a reverential way, but I do maintain that Ray is kind of a nerd and kind of a dummy and obviously a pain in the ass. And they go through the whole thing and if you don't show up, I'm going to leave double quick. And he's like, I fancy a bevy. And they go to the pub or whatever. My favorite line from the rewatch is Jem's in the corner in the shadows appealing to Ray. They're headed to sleep. And he starts off on his, dreary, drama-laden monologue or whatever. And Jem goes, all these years. And Ray looks at him, he goes, all these years fucking what? It was great. He's just a normal dude. And when you go on a quest to find the Colonel Kurtz or anybody who has become the stuff of legend, and it's just a random dude chopping wood and making shoes, I do think that it factors into, it can't be like a rom-com or a family drama, family ties style with Danny Day-Lewis sitting at the kitchen table, Like it has to be this thing where the myth and legend is built up about him and then kind of immediately dispelled when he talks about eating nothing but Guinness and chili in preparation for his meeting Ripon again.
Oh, Ripon. There is the myth and the legend that come with the actor Daniel Day-Lewis, and then the characters in the world of Anemone also ascribe to him some kind of supernatural powers. Either that or it's a bit of a story weak point that they think that he can somehow turn Brian around. Why now is the big question in this family's dynamic. Like after all of these years, they feel like Ray can turn Brian around now, that they haven't called upon him until now. And so they are giving his character a lot of power. Brian doesn't seem to be as interested as Nessa and Jem are, but they seem to think that he's going to have some kind of magic touch on their troubled son, who, for all accounts, seemed like a pretty normal kid. It wasn't like he was estranged from his dad or his mom necessarily. In fact, he seemed rather attached to his dad. He didn't want him to go to find Ray. Was he so bad off? I guess he had committed a pretty gnarly crime, but how was a convicted war criminal going to get him out of that?
On paper, dude, on paper. Everybody had these detailed backstories that were slowly unrolled, but Jem said that Brian was really well liked. Everybody loves him there. And as such, when he goes AWOL, they're going to give him a week's grace. How well loved was he? Because obviously he was a sad kid, but he didn't seem particularly vivacious or caring or charismatic or whatever. He seemed like kind of a dour Neville Longbottom pre-sexy transformation lump. And then he almost beat a dude to death. How much do you love Brian Stoker?
Funny, his name is Bottomley.
Bottomley?
Yeah, the actor is Samuel Bottomley.
The Neville Longbottom connection? Got it. That's his backstory. The only thing I can come up with is that Jem and Nessa were at the end of their rope. They were desperate that he not commit an offense against the military that would mar his entire future. He needs to go back. He needs to live up to his responsibility. And maybe if we demythologize the person that he's all bent out of shape about, your dad this, your dad that, and he's a coward and stuff. Maybe if that person shows up to tell Brian to his face, I'm a normal guy with flaws and I have regrets and you can't run from your problems. I'm here, I'm living proof. Maybe that could turn Brian around. It's a long shot for sure. Maybe Brian could be convinced, if he is face to face with his dad, can hate him or not, gets some resolution, some clarification, can assess for himself what kind of person Ray Stoker is. Maybe he'll go back before he gets in a lot of trouble. It's all I got.
So this is their Hail Mary. What does it mean for Nessa to see who is her baby daddy and was once her husband or lover?
Sean Bean, Jem conveniently gets out of the way. He gets off the bike first, goes and touches her arm, and then walks into the house, and she still stands there. And I'm like, here it is, the big meeting. I'm sure it's going to be 3 pages of dialogue, right? No. It's going to be like the beginning of this movie. She stares at him. He takes off the helmet, turns around dramatically. As we saw him first, we saw just his back. And then she turns and they lock eyes or whatever. And she looks at him for a while. And then she turns and walks away. I'm watching super close. What is it going to be for Nessa? But he turned his back on her. She likewise, in a gentler way, does so with him. He's going to be welcomed into the house, but it's just kind of an acknowledgement. Yep, I'm still here. We both look a little bit older. I guess you better come in and face what you've done. Your kid who is troubled and doesn't know anything about you. But she is like, okay, I guess this is happening. And Samantha Morton has this wonderful, courageous, quiet thing and always has. So really good. I wouldn't say it was anticlimactic. I just think that it was a statement on her part to acknowledge that he is there, look him in the face and be like, this isn't for me. This is for my kid. You better come inside before the hail starts again.
Yeah, she's not the one who's looking for questions to be answered, for resolution, or to even necessarily reconnect with Ray. She understands to probably the greatest extent who he is and maybe what to expect of him. So yeah, you've been summoned. Come and give it your best shot with Brian. But otherwise, I don't necessarily need you, is what she seems to be saying. She and Jem, their relationship isn't necessarily explained, but what does Ray say? Like, you got my girl and you got my son. What else do you want from me?
What do you want from me, brother? Yes, it made me more curious. Obviously, you asked about Nessa. I was wondering what it's going to be like for Jem now. He loves his brother. He has to love his brother. Is bringing his brother back into the house, but Nessa was never his lady to begin with. I have to assume he doesn't think that he's saving Ray, that Ray will cease to be a Lord of the Flies and will return to civilization. He's going to come in, have a chat, maybe have a bevy, maybe apologize to Nessa at best, and then folk back off to his cabin. Like, I don't think that he's back for good and they're going to have a modern family.
No, I think these characters are all pretty set in their ways, but they acknowledge that maybe Brian still has a chance to change or maybe become more fully who he's meant to be, apart from all of the baggage that they collectively bring. So that's cool. It is this generation kind of coming together to maybe give him a chance. And isn't that what Daniel Day-Lewis is doing for his son? I mean, it seemed like a very collaborative project, but what better way to launch your son's career than to mentor him and to support him in this way by returning to acting? So there's some layers to that which make it pretty interesting, but then I got to come back to, was this movie good? Like I said at the top, I think that Ronan Day-Lewis did some things right, but ultimately does Anemone succeed? And it seems like it's only kind of so-so. It's like a 6-7. Especially from the IMDb user reviews, which I have to share with you because this one's kind of clever. It says 5 stars. I want my anemone money back. You saw this in the theater. Was it worth it?
Well, there was no one else really there. It was opening weekend. I felt that it was worth it. Yes, frankly surprised by the audience reactions and the critical reactions, but no matter how you cut it, it's going to come with massive expectations for Daniel Day-Lewis's return, for it to be the feature debut of his kid, who is so Timothée Chalamet. He's got like floppy hair and like a basketball jacket, or he's like, yeah, totally. No, this is crazy. Wow, you know? He doesn't seem like the auteur filmmaker. Daniel Day-Lewis in real life seems like kind of a doofy dude, but whatever. I was so elated to watch him on screen. Very, very strong supporting cast. But people didn't fall for an obviously amateur filmmaker's ambitious vision because it looked great. But did it look great? Was it visionary filmmaking? Or was that just what the north of England looks like? So the synopsis says Northern England, but obviously they're Irish. I don't care to make the distinction, but it's so wild and crazy and windy and dark and candle lit or like fireplace lit and stuff. And it looks awesome out there. But whenever they're in like suburban Ireland with Brian and Nessa, I'm like, that looks kind of lame.
It was intentionally contrasting in that way, right? It's this nonconformist conformity dichotomy.
The whole theme is contrast, right? It was the vibrant fair lights or the carnival contrasted with the pitch black night around it. And it's eerie and there's no one there and there's no one for 1,000 miles. And Jem has to go off-road just to get to Ray's cabin. He's like, okay, you tentatively agreed after our fist fight. You know, and all that, there was nice moments. Everything with the two of them was great. But then they had to go and like, okay, I marked it on the map where I left my bike 4 miles up the glen or whatever. And then they have to dig it out and walk it over the roots to get back to any kind of road or civilization. Beautifully shot, but I don't know if that was just wild Ireland or if it was necessarily attributed to Ronan Day-Lewis's cinematography or his vision as a first-time filmmaker. Not sure, but people didn't seem to fall for it. As you said, kind of story plot light, but what did you say? Story heavy or
story
like
heavy.
Backstory heavy?
Yeah, there's a lot of story there, but the overall plot you can sum up in a few sentences.
What is it with Daniel Day-Lewis swimming in the ocean with his estranged brothers? I always wondered if he was going to snap, if Jem was simply walking into Mordor, this wild place by himself where he did not belong. That was a Sean Bean, like pan-career reference. You didn't get it because you don't watch movies.
I was expecting Sean Bean to get beheaded at some point, that's for sure.
Right? But he wasn't sleeping by the door. He wasn't sleeping with one eye open or with a butcher knife next to his bedroll. His guard was completely down. They were swimming. He got clocked and never saw it coming. He like goes outside in his panties and like is like, what are you doing? And I was like, this is weird. And I don't know if it was because it was not American filmmaking or what, but it's, you know, it seemed like a brotherly relationship for this type of dude in a place that's not my place.
Filial, comfortable, where there is implicit trust, even if you know that your family member is kind of off their rocker. A lot of unconventional choices filmmaking-wise, which I chalked up to a budding filmmaker finding their visual voice. If I had a problem with it, it was the pacing, which brings me to this 7-star user review, slow and somber. There was literally a point in this movie, in the viewing of this movie, where the image froze for like 30 seconds, and I didn't even realize that there was latency. I literally thought that we were just sitting in the scene.
I have to admit, a little bit tough in the rewatch. But if you don't eat meat for 7 years, you don't jump back in with Tommy's chili. You don't go for pastrami. You ease into it. I mean, not Daniel Day-Lewis, because he came back as Bill the Butcher. But in this particular case, he's older, maybe wiser. He came back with his kids' Little Nothing movie or whatever, which I don't see could have been made without a person of his star power and talent. But he had great people around him. It was just a soft entry back into what he does best. And I admit, I'm probably too forgiving. I liked Anemone. It was a good theatrical experience. Kelly remembered it, but I'm not sure that I'll be like, I need to have this experience wash over me in total again. It did feel longer than its 2 hours, 15 minutes or whatever it was, and so I'll watch pieces, but I might tune out for the neon horse penis again.
It wasn't a horse. It was like a Miyazaki centaur.
Ugh.
And that's our discussion on Anemone. 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com is how you let us know what you thought of Anemone. So this is supposed to be, this is award season at Or Whatever Movies. As far as the Golden Globes are concerned, this doesn't seem like a contender, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised. The Academy loves Daniel Day-Lewis if he pops up on an Oscar ballot.
Sure. I'm not going to like rage or whatever.
Or whatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts.
It was like a slow motion version of What Does the Fox Say with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Thanks for listening in. We'll see you next time.
You deserve better health care, and so do we all. Medicine in America is a podcast that shares real stories of patients and doctors reshaping the future, because the revolution in care isn't coming. It's already here. Real stories, real change, a better future for healthcare.
Electricast.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Peter.
We're the founders of Electricast Media, bringing you great podcasts like Nightmare Road Stories, Tech Talk Revolution, and Bodacious Minds.
Electricast networks include Ruby for female empowerment, the Best Business Network, and GPN for geopolitics. We built this company to create community and amplify diverse voices, and we really appreciate your support.
So, keep listening to Electricast podcasts and hear the culture.
Electricast.